and welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Today we try out the 2013 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid Edition. Now before we dive into the engine of this hybrid, let's go over the basics of this vehicle. Now you got a wheelbase of 110 inches and it measures over about 190 overall. Now that's comparable to some SUVs. Now where this is not comparable to SUVs, of course, is the height. Now it measures under 5 feet tall. It is pretty stretched at 6 feet wide. Now what's great about this sedan offering is, of course, it has room for 5, but it has great leg room inside, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Now we've test drove the Sonata before, so there's no differences, of course, when you go from the hybrid to the standard models. Now in this vehicle, it is the limited edition, so we got 17-inch wheels. The standard, of course, is 16. Now, as I mentioned, I've been behind the wheel of the Sonata before and the Azera, and the more times you get behind the wheel of a vehicle, you're either going to like it or you're going to find the quirks. Now, I've found that there's actually more to love here than to hate, and especially when you're behind the wheel of the hybrid, because obviously you're getting better numbers behind the wheel and at the pump. Now, before we get into all that, of course, let's look at the exterior, and you'll find that Hyundai has had a great evolution over the years and have come to the forefront of style, exterior, and everything that goes together to make a great sedan. Now, obviously on the front end, I noticed some appeal that you're going to find it on other vehicles, maybe like the Camry. Nice lower fascia, nice sculpted hood lines, nothing real robust, nice chiseled lines, which a lot of the vehicles are going to. Now, if you sweep down the side, not a lot of haunches, real tight body lines, and a little bit of sculpted edges every now and then. Now, of course, there's little chrome accents, not overdone, which I don't like the chrome when it blings at you too much. Now, one thing you'll notice on this vehicle, now again, this is the limited, but you'll notice this black roof line. Now, typically most vehicles are going to have body color everywhere. This one has a black, and the reason for that is the dual sunroofs up top. Now, one of them is operational, will open to the air. The other one is visually for lighting. Now, what's great about that is it enhances the interior, and we'll see that later when we get inside. The biggest difference you're going to find on this Sonata versus others is the blue drive insignia. That is on the side and up front where you'll see the blue behind the emblem, and that lets you know this is a hybrid. Now, the hybrid models have been out for years, and they've actually come a long way since my first introduction to one, and it was the Honda Insight years ago. Now, that model obviously was a 2-door, and it had tons of batteries behind the front seats. Now, we've come a long way, as this is a 4-door sedan here on the Hyundai, and it doesn't have all those battery requirements. Now, what it does is it obviously combines the electric power and the gas-powered engine into one. Now, in this model, it's a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine that delivers around about 159 horses, 154 foot-pounds of torque. Now, typically when you get in a hybrid, you're going to notice the first thing, which is noise. There is none. When you crank this vehicle, it is run by the battery. There's no initial noise, and actually don't even realize it's running. And when we get in the vehicle, I'll actually show you how you know it is, and it's right there on the dash, and it's called a ready button. Now, for 2013 on this hybrid model, they've increased the electrical motor to around about 35 kilowatts, and they've put a more powerful lithium polymer battery in here as well, which is going to be around about 47 kilowatts. Now, what that means is it's going to deliver more hybrid-S type driving in this vehicle. More electric motor assist, more storing of power in your battery. So more or less you're getting more bang for your buck. And when you look at the numbers, you're getting around about 6% increase on your fuel economy. On this vehicle, we noticed that on the highway, of course, that's where you get your best bang for your buck. When you're not in the city stop and go, where hybrids really don't get their true impact, when we took it on the long trip, we had much better numbers, typically in the high to mid 30, 38, 39, 40 miles per gallon. And that's great. Now, this fuel tank is about 17 gallons. When you talk about other sedans that may be in the mid-20s, easily this vehicle is getting 10 miles more per gallon. So in comparison, that's obviously around about 170 miles more of range on this vehicle versus a standard sedan. So obviously, if you're a commuter hitting the highway, going to work, that's going to pay off dividends very quickly. Now, when we talk about the hybrid engine up front, you wonder how does that help the back end, and in this case it does in reference to battery weight. Previous model was 96 pounds of weight, now they've decreased that to around about 91. Now, 5 pounds is not a huge savings, but what it did do is free up rear cargo space in the trunk. It was 10.7 cubic feet. They've now increased that to 12.1. And that's great for a vehicle that's got a huge range on the highway, something you're going to take on a family vacation. So you're going to want as much as you can back here. And even with the decrease in battery weight, you did not ruin efficiency. It's even more efficient, and you want that strong battery presence to deliver that electric power when you need it. Now when you climb inside the hybrid version of the Sonata, there is no first indicator to let you know it's just that. There is no blue drive insignias like you would expect. So when you get in here, you just feel like you're in the other vehicle. Now the first thing I love and I liked about this limited model is the smart key system that it uses. And if you know my history on this, I love them. And what it is, it gets rid of the old traditional key and goes to kind of the smart system where you just press a button, start the car, press a button on the handle to get in. And we've done this, been there, done that, but I'm glad it's on this vehicle. Now once you start looking around the dash, that's maybe when you get the first indicator that this is not your average cup of tea. And it's right there, right beside the speedometer, that you're going to notice. And instead of your tachometer, you've actually got an eco guide. And what that does is it tells you kind of what system you're in, lets you know where you are in the range of economy. Now also on there is a big indicator, which is most important, which is the ready light. And that is one of the only indicators that let me know this car was running. Because what you do, obviously put your foot on the brake and press the start button. But if you're waiting for that audible noise of the engine to crank up, it doesn't happen. This is as quiet as an electric golf cart. So you've actually got to look at that ready light, let you know that you're actually on, put it in reverse and go on. Because even when you put it in drive or reverse, the engine is still not going to engage. It's actually going to run that electric, if it can, right off the bat, and not engage the actual gas-driven version until it's needed. Now as for legroom in this vehicle, you're going to have around about 45 inches up front. Now that is ginormous by any sedan means, because anything over 40 inches to me is plentiful. Now when you get to the back, those numbers are limited around about 34 inches. But I don't really like those numbers on paper, because with 45 inches up front, you can easily give more space to the back. So the give and take in this vehicle is plentiful. So I really think those numbers in the back are around about 37, 38 inches, considering you can give in the front to gain in the back. Now on the dash on this limited model, I come to love anything that's electronic, especially when you have an LCD screen, a big one that has all the touch screen that you could possibly want. Now on this, of course, it had the navigation, XM radio, Bluetooth device, and it's all controlled with touchscreen up here with some corresponding buttons down below. Even better is there's a huge knob right in the middle for powering it on and for volume control. Now right below that is the climate, and I've actually loved their system, as there's kind of a diagram of a seat right in the middle, and it lets you know where the airflow is going. So instead of having to find some clunky buttons and figure out where the air is going, it's real simply diagram right in front of you. Now, other differences you're going to find on this hybrid model, of course, again, on the dash right behind the steering wheel and between the speedometer and the eco guide. And what that is your little information system. Now other vehicles are going to give you a whole bunch of settings, but on this one it really refers to the hybrid information you're going to be looking for. Now you hit the corresponding display button, it's going to give you your average speed, it's actually going to give you your lapse time, but as you go through them, you're going to find things like energy flow, and what that's telling you is what the car is doing. In this case, right now it's charging the battery. Other times when the wheels are going, it's charging the battery, using electric power, and it shuts off and tells you what's going on as you're driving. Now other things is like an eco level and a battery level, and all those things are just kind of giving you up-to-date information of how well you're driving to save fuel and change your dynamics if you need to. Now other information on there is an eco score. Haven't really diagnosed really what that is. We've gained a 120 eco score, started around about 110. So I haven't really figured out what the eco score is on this vehicle. I'm hoping that I can maybe get it to the right one and there's some type of award at the end, but I really don't think that's the case. Now what's great about this vehicle, of course this is limited, so it has the leather and it really enveloped you as you drove. Now one complaint we had in the department was on the driver's side it was powered. You could raise and lower, move the vehicle easily. Now on the passenger side that was manual in this model, and you could only go forward and backward. And the one complaint was on the passenger side of the front you seemed to sit low. It actually seemed to dwarf you in there and made you barely look over the dash in some cases. So one fix would maybe be a manual crank where you can actually raise that seat up. Obviously you can move it forward and backward as much as you want, but that was one modest complaint, was that that seat is just too low. Now we tested out the 2013 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid, and in this vehicle we're talking about green technology, but we're also talking about blue insignias. So be on the lookout for the blue drive system and the blue behind the Hyundai emblem. That's going to let you know that this is an environmentally friendly version, and best of all, it gives you great gas mileage. Now I'd like to thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson, and as always, keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.